Welcome to Season 2 of the To Health With That podcast, where we break up big health topics into small bites. I'm Amy, and this season I'll share all the tips, tricks, and hacks you need to get healthy with an MTHFR mutation in a step-by-step, week-by-week process. I can't wait. Hey everybody, welcome. This week I am so pleased to be talking with Jennifer Bronsnick, who is an anxiety expert. She has the Anxiety Proof Her podcast, which I was delighted to be a guest on just recently. And we get to pick her brain today about her journey with anxiety. That's super exciting. So Jennifer Bronsnick, LCSW, CMHIMP, which stands for Certified Mental Health Integrative Medical Practitioner, is passionate about supporting individuals to access their innate resilience, heal from burnout and anxiety, uncover their passions, and ultimately love their lives. She's like my soul sister. I love this. So learn more at Jennifer Bronsnick. So remember, there's a second N in there, bronsnick.com, or follow her on Instagram at Anxiety Proof Her, or on Facebook, Jennifer Bronsnick, MSW. So all of that aside, let's talk to Jennifer. So what makes you so passionate about anxiety? Like, tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me on and allowing me to share my journey with your audience. I really, really appreciate it. And I love talking about it because I have healed myself without resorting to medications and through pretty significant lifestyle shifts. So the way that I look at anxiety, I've had anxiety my whole life. So from when I was 2, I had seizures. So when you have seizures as a child, your parents get very overprotective and they love you very much. But there is this belief that you are, potentially could, have this situation at hand. And what if we're not there to protect you? And so you sort of grow up believing like, I need other people to take care of me and protect me. Like I am this victim of, circumstance, like anything bad could happen at any moment. Like you could have a seizure.
Delicate.
Right, exactly. And so that was never spoken, obviously. That was never said to me. But that's the energy of really loving parents. My parents loved me to death. They wanted nothing more than to keep me safe. And so I grew up like, gotta be safe, until I became an adolescent and still sort of had anxiety. But I learned that when you drink alcohol, you actually can get rid of your anxiety for a minute and have a lot of fun. Right. It's like, so it's magical in that moment. Like you drop your ego, all the fears and of like, what if this happens? What if people are judging me? Like, no, like it's all gone. Like you get to have fun and play and like be this sort of, hedonistic person, which I loved. But what I've realized is like, oh my gosh, the next day after I drink, the anxiety comes back and it's like 10 times worse. And so there were years where I was literally just drinking. Like I would party, I would wake up like for maybe a 2-month time period where it was like, oh, okay, like we were out until 5 a.m. We get up, we start like drinking at 11 because you have to, like get that equilibrium back. And the whole time, like the amazing thing was like I had anxiety and I had those physical sensations. Thankfully, I also had the wherewithal to do really well in school and to go to a good college and to get, multiple degrees. And so I was able to sort of function within this space of anxiety where I would call my mom, like my stomach hurts. I'm like, usually it was I'm dying. Because I think when you have a medical condition when you're young and you're in hospitals, you just sort of like everything's like it's cancer. Headache, brain tumor.
This is it.
This is it. Like, let's just stomach ache. Like, I don't know, whatever, like bad thing's going to happen. And so it was this constant, like, anxiety, it's like whack-a-mole, right? So as I was a kid, it was like, gotta be safe. And then it shifted to, okay, what if people are talking about me? And then as I got older, it was like, oh my God, like, am I going to get married? Am I going to have kids? So it wasn't, anxiety, it works. It just leaps around. So once it's part of the patterning of your brain, and you're wired to not like uncertainty and not like being uncomfortable, it doesn't matter. Anxiety doesn't care if it's going to be people judging me or a fear of spiders. Like, it's the same process that's happening no matter what the presentation is. And so that knowledge was incredibly helpful, along with, so eventually the anxiety got so bad that I was having panic attacks. And that's what led me into this holistic world where I had my hair sampled, I had my stool sampled, I had my hormones tested, and all the things. And so I began to recognize, so not only is there this patterning, this belief that I am a victim, I can't handle uncertainty, I can only be comfortable. There's my amygdala, that's part of it too, of scanning the environment, always looking for danger, hardwired to always see the negative, that's part of it too. But then this opened up like, oh, wait a second, it's actually my lifestyle. The drinking, the food, the sugar, the carbs, the foods I was eating. And, since you came on my podcast, I know a little bit about the MTHFR and how everything impacts your folate. I don't know if I have it or not, but I can tell you that once I cut sugar, I haven't had a drink in 3 years. I eat, carbs, but not generally white flour carbs, which have the folic acid and whatever in them. I haven't had a panic attack. I sleep well. I feel resilient. And I'm in the most stressful point in my life because I'm also going through a divorce. And so you would think that I would be freaking out, but I am not. And it is because of working on all those levels. So, and that's the way that I look at anxiety for myself, for my clients, is that it's not just this one thing we're going to look at. Like, we're not going to just look at the brain and give you a pill. No, we're going to teach you about the brain and how it impacts our physiological system. We're going to look at lifestyle choices and the behaviors, whether it's a glass of wine every night, whether it's that, cookie before bed, and recognize how that impacts what's happening in your mind and your gut, which is your second brain. And then also looking at, like, maybe there is some past stuff, some past traumas that need to come to the surface where you can heal and clear that energy. So you're always working on these like different phases, I think. At least that's what I have found for myself, is that there's anxiety. Why I love treating it is it's so interesting because everybody has a different experience with it. And, some people it's more OCD, some people it's more of a phobia, fear of driving, but it's the same pattern. Like, it's the same thing that's happening. It's your worry part. It's a part of life. And once you have the right tools, the right diet, the right techniques, it becomes so much more manageable. And then you get to this place of resilience where like nothing can knock you off your peace, like, which is, that to me is the ultimate goal.
Oh, it's remarkable. And you know what? I love this, right? Because yours is such a remarkable anxiety story, in that you've come from a place of conditioning, right? Like very strong anxiety conditioning in your family, which ironically is entirely my family as well. Mine was not about seizures. It was because I was, 2 months premature and tiny and underweight, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But same thing, right? That conditioning of like, you need protection. We need to protect you. And that's how we show you love, is by protecting you constantly. Oh my God. And so, and you've come out of that and really like, the alcohol, it's a search for coping, right? It's looking for tools that help.
Yeah. And
right?
it works in the moment. That's what makes it so appealing, right?
Exactly.
It works so well.
Exactly.
And then it doesn't.
And then it doesn't. It works so well as long as you keep taking it all the time, except, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as you've developed and matured as a human, you've found these better coping mechanisms and better resources, and you're blossoming, right? Like you're flourishing. It's amazing. It's such a beautiful and inspiring story to see someone just really thrive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I feel that in my heart too. And it does, one of the tools that I use is something called heart math. And so with heart math, you are increasing your resilience, you're increasing your inner battery stores by experiencing these positive renewing feeling states like gratitude. And so it's just I'm so grateful that while I was drinking, I also was studying.
Yeah.
That while I was struggling as a kid, I was also pushing myself a little bit to be uncomfortable. And I had friends that would pull me out of it a little bit more. And so, like, at every one of those phases, even though I was struggling with anxiety, there's always something that I could look back and be, wow, like, I'm so grateful for these people, for this experience, for this to happen. And I'm grateful for going through all of those challenging times because it
Absolutely.
led me to the tools that I ultimately needed in order to be able to overcome this, very overreactive worry part that I was both born and, created.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So if you had to talk to, say, an audience like mine, right? These are MTHFR folks by and large. They're people
Mhm.
who are definitely struggling with anxiety, with depression. A lot of it is, I mean, it's a physiological state.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? What would be the thing that you'd convey?
Oh, yeah. So always love for just who you are, where you're at. Like if you can come into that space of self-love, self-compassion, I find that always it opens a window. If if I can drop into that space a little bit, like, okay, I love that I had seizures. I love that I had panic attacks
Mhm.
because it led me to guides, to angels in human bodies that taught me and gave me those tools. And so it's love. There's always hope. There's always someone that has lived your story, that figured something out that you don't know yet, but it is out there, that thing that's going to change everything.
Mhm.
And it's sometimes just listening to your intuition, where it may not make sense in your mind, but your body's like, you know what, let me look into tapping or Reiki, or maybe there's mold in my house. Like, our intuition, like you'll see things. Like I feel like social media is like the perfect way to train your intuition. It's like what calls to you, like
Yeah.
when you see something. Like sometimes you're just scrolling and all of a sudden it's like something stops you. Like that could be your intuition. Look at, like, dig deeper. What is that? Maybe there's something there for you. And there's not just like this miracle cure. For me, it's like, to me, everything's like a spiral to me, where it's okay, I tried this, which led me to this, and this actually was like the most helpful thing. And actually, like, going through divorce and becoming more sovereign into myself has been incredibly healing. While I thought like that it would be incredibly hard, which it has been too, that coming into my own has been immensely empowering and and anxiety reducing in a way. So sometimes we have to look at our relationships. Sometimes there are people in our lives that stress us out, and we take on their energy, especially if you're sensitive. If you're anxious and depressed, you are also empathic. Like you are picking up other people's energies. It is not just your own, it's planetary sadness, it's our family, it's our community. There's a lot of energy shifting. And so it's just not taking full responsibility, but taking full responsibility for taking the actions for your healing.
Yes, I love that. And you know what? One of the things that stands out to me so much about this conversation is how how you are able to have gratitude for things that other people might victimize, right? Like say, poor me, I had seizures. Poor me, I went through, I had to cope with alcohol. Poor me,
Yeah,
I'm going through a divorce. Poor me,
yeah,
poor me, poor me.
yeah,
But, by reframing it in this way and looking at the gifts that that's brought you, it's such a powerful position, right?
yes,
You've taken yourself out of that like helpless, wilting flower place, and you've put yourself in a position of thank you for these experiences. I am growing, right? I am
yeah,
becoming stronger. I am learning from this.
yeah, yeah,
It's amazing. Like that is such a beautiful, beautiful life skill and such a beautiful reminder because, for whatever reason, I had a poor me day yesterday.
yeah.
Not for
It
any, like,
happens.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh, totally, totally.
yeah,
And it does happen sometimes. And thankfully, I've been on this journey long enough that I recognize when I'm in this pattern and I can kind of, like wallow around in it for a minute and then be like, okay, and now I'm done, right?
yeah, yes. But I
And-
love that you let yourself experience it without saying, okay, this can't be me. No, you were just present with this is what I'm feeling right now. This is my reality. And the more you can feel your feelings, whatever they are, sadness, grief, joy, peace, the more you can really just recognize one, that they're all temporary, even the good ones, and the bad ones will pass too. But the more you build up that capacity to sit with it and to say, okay, let me watch how this moves. Cause like we're somatic. So our feelings are constantly shifted. Like there isn't just like sadness, it flows, it changes. Like it's in our shoulder, then it moves to our elbow, as if we watch our body, like the feelings are going to give us sensations. And it's just a fun exercise, really, just to see, okay, like I'm feeling really sad right now. Let me just like cry my freaking eyes out and watch myself, like watch the experience of like that's aliveness to me. Like that is like being in the depth of pain is aliveness.
yeah,
Being in the height of joy is aliveness. One is not better than the other. Like it is just aliveness. And so being able to practice that. And I've been doing a lot of work around. There's a book called Existential Kink that I recommend to everyone. And I'm forgetting the author's name right now, but that's the only book out there. And basically, our soul didn't come into this incarnation for just peace, joy, and love.
right.
It came in to experience all of it, the sadness, the depth, the love, the hate, all of those feelings. Yet we are always like, only want this. I only want the good stuff. I only want, but there is a very unconscious part of us that's kinky and wants the bad stuff. And so, if we can welcome in that shadow and welcome in that part of us that does crave for those experiences and recognize that the part of us that's resisting it, if we can drop the resistance, there's sort of this paradox that happens where it's like the minute you stop saying, like, I don't want to feel anxious, I don't want to feel anxious, where you just like, all right, if I feel anxious, like, whatever,
Right.
you don't feel anxious anymore because it's in the resistance of it that's creating the suffering for you. Once
That's
you can surrender in it, it no longer has the power because you're allowing everything.
Yeah, no, and that's actually incredibly powerful. And I think we do that we have like I think a lot of people have an internal judgment about particular feelings, right? I know for me, I struggled with anger for so, so long, right? Because I wasn't supposed to have anger. When I was growing up, I was never supposed to be angry, right? Like that was not that was kind of a forbidden emotion in a way.
Sure. Yep.
And again, not because of anything that was said. It was so upsetting to my family structure, right? And to the
Yeah.
people that I loved that I just kind of, nope.
Yeah. Like you felt the love taken away when you allowed anger to come up.
Well, and just so much reflected anxiety, right? Like if I was angry, my parents both just got so anxious and so hyper concerned and like it was just it
Right.
was way more than as a kid I knew how to tolerate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, it's been this very big journey of accepting that A, I have anger, and B,
Mhm.
that's not a bad thing, right? Like anger is actually a
Yeah,
really appropriate protective response.
for sure.
And C, like I'm allowed, right? It's an experience that I can have safely that
Mhm.
actually enriches my life, right? And that's
Yeah.
honest. It has integrity. There's a very deep level of honesty in emotions like anger, sadness, self-pity, right?
Mhm.
Even worry, right? All of these things are very honest. And I think that, allowing yourself to embrace them is a really powerful, powerful stance. It's also very hard.
Yeah. Yes, which is
It
where, professionals come into play, where sometimes you can only go so far on your own, where you need someone to help hold the space. I had a session, an amazing session with a hypnotherapist a couple weeks ago, and it transformative. It was wonderful. And I wouldn't have been able to go there on my own. I needed someone to ask me the right questions. I needed someone to say, okay, let's sit with that feeling. And I'm sitting with you as you're in the feeling. Now tell me what's going on. And
Yeah,
so being able to, I think a big thing is one, investing in yourself. You
yeah,
will always get a return on that investment, and taking the time, taking the time to say, because it's easy, I'm so busy, I have this going on, I can't work with someone, it's too expensive. But what ends up happening is when you're feeling good, you make more money, you make more connections, it impacts your family, it impacts your community. So it's being able to receive some of the support that's out there, because I think that sometimes is a block, is like, well, I can't do it, I'm not worthy enough to take this. You are worthy enough to take care of your health, especially, anxiety impacts your health. When you're anxious, it releases stress hormones, which increase your cortisol, which decreases your immune system. And so this is an essential health management tool of figuring out how you personally can manage anxiety and stress when it comes up. It's an anxiety, it's just like another feeling like everything else, so we're not resisting it, we're not getting rid of anxiety. Like, that's never the goal. We need to be anxious sometimes, like when there's a test, I need some stress, I need a little bit of like that cortisol to like get me to actually open a book. It's
right.
when it's chronic, it's every day, it's impacting your life, you can't go out, you're not sleeping well, it's impacting your relationships. Like, that's where then it's like, okay, let's move into more of, we need to treat this rather than, seeing it as just like a feeling. Um,
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And it's such a healthy perspective, right? I think with self-care, it's really easy to bring our own pathologies in, if that makes any sense. Like, so I have a very perfectionist kind of background, right? I was
mhm.
definitely a perfectionist, and I'm now a recovering perfectionist, which means I'm still very aware of my perfectionist tendencies. But there's that tendency within personal care as well to say, well, I have to become perfect. I have to do this the perfect way. And it puts so much pressure on the situation that you lose kind of mobility, you lose flexibility, and you lose the ability to really just kind of go with what's happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's easy to become paralyzed in the decision of like, what's the next step I take? You know what? Just go with it, right? Like,
Yeah. There's no wrong step.
there's no wrong step. That's
If you're taking a step forward, that's it. And
yeah,
then you learn, and then you say, oh, okay, did I like that? Is that something I want to do again? Did I like that person?
exactly.
It's always leading you. And that's why another reason heart math I love so much is that it really, when you get quiet, you drop into your heart, you activate love, care, you go within, you are increasing your intuition.
Yeah.
And that side of you that knows, that inner knowing, that no amount of research and science, like,
Yeah.
it will guide you. Your soul will always guide you to the next right thing if you are listening. Once you get like, and you feel it too, when you're in your intuition, like it is a full body feel, like it is like, I want to move towards this, like the body wants to go. The minute you start thinking about, like you feel it go up to your head, and then you're out of it. Like you're not in intuition anymore. Now you're in like, logic and all that stuff, which is useful at times, right? We want to, have
Sure.
pros and cons and things, but generally our intuition is what's going to lead us to the right people. To me, it's always been people. It's always been a connection that led me to another connection that had knowledge that I didn't know. Like that's like my miracles have always come in the form of other humans. And just like saying, okay, like who's my next teacher? Who's my next guide? What angel is going to come into my life? And sometimes they're for a moment, sometimes they're for a lifetime, and it's being okay. I think that's another thing with anxiety that I see a lot, and depression, is that it's like this grasping
Mhm.
of this has to be forever, or this, like, or is this going to be forever? Like those are the two questions, right? So it's like, is this going to be this, like my life forever? And it's like, it's getting to that space of non-attachment where it's letting go of both the anxiety and the need to know what's going to happen. And just surrendering to the present moment and looking at, okay, well, what is happening right now? What could I do right now? Like right now, I have this candle that smells like pine and Christmas burning in front of me. And it brings me joy in this moment. There's nothing else I can be present with you in this moment. I don't have to, I can make a choice not to think about what's happening tomorrow. Of course, it's always that balance of we have to think and plan. That's how we're humans. It's how we have evolved, and we suffer because we're not in the present. And so if you can spend at least a few moments, hours, whatever you can, do in just being in the moment, like smelling the smells, seeing the things, feeling your body, feeling the emotions, and just dropping into the body rather than living in the mind, that's where true healing really happens, because you make it the message of like, you need to leave your marriage, or you need
Right.
to, your kids need this tool, like they're struggling in school, they need a tutor. You get these like things that drop in miraculously when you get quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Jennifer, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's so lovely to talk to somebody who's really embodied their health journey, right? Who's not just, like, this is what I learned in school and this is what I say about anxiety, but who really is living that, right? And living it every day and walking the path with their clients. That's amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, my pleasure. So if anybody who's watching or listening would like to contact you, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is probably my website. I offer a free 15-minute consultation where we just get to, a little bit of the root about what's going on. I work with adolescents. I have a program for girls who are in their senior year of high school who are ready to initiate into more of a space of sovereignty and womanhood. And so I work with them and teach them coping tools and guide them on that journey. Um, and you can come to my website at Jennifer Bronsnick, BRONSNICK.com. And there's a link that you can schedule right there. I also have a free download for a panic attack survival guide that's there.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.